Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. I'm Merran Smith. I'm the president of New Economy Canada. We are an initiative uniting companies, unions, and Indigenous organizations that spans mining, construction, steel, clean energy, clean technology. We represent over 410,000 workers and companies that generate more than 200 billion Canadian in annual revenues. And some of these members and industry leaders are here with me today. So as the Prime Minister said last week, clean electricity is the path, the only path to a sustainable, profitable economy. And Canada needs far more clean power to support emerging industries and projects from AI to defense to mining, clean manufacturing, and electrified transportation. So expanding generation, storage, transmission, and energy efficiency, this will create hundreds of thousands of skilled jobs and enhance the abundant clean power that's Canada's competitive advantage. So we welcome federal efforts to speed up project approvals, but access to affordable, reliable electricity will soon become a barrier to development unless we prioritize it, unless we act urgently. The North Coast Transmission Line announced last week was also welcome, but what we're looking for is to go beyond one-off project proposals. We're here today to support making clean electrification a nation-building priority that will greenlight projects across the country, attracting billions of private investment. And here's how we do it. Number one, task the Major Projects Office with advancing major clean power and transmission projects. Two, launch a United Canada grid initiative that builds interprovincial transmission and energy corridors, respecting provincial and Indigenous jurisdiction. And three, unlock private investment through the Clean Electricity Investment Tax Credits. I'll now ask my colleagues to speak about their work on electrification. John.
Thank you, Merran. Great segue. And first of all, I'm John Risley from Halifax. And Merran's comments were a great segue into my own. So I really worry about the country at the moment. I think we are, frankly, in deep trouble. I'm not sure as to the extent that that's well understood by the average Canadian, but there are signs everywhere. Foreign direct investment is dried up. Productivity numbers relative to our neighbors to the south and G7 generally are terrible. We've got huge uncertainty around the renegotiations of our free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico. And so what can we do to change this? And frankly, the country has got a credibility problem in the capital markets. And I would argue we've got an internal credibility problem. We talk about major projects, but we don't have a history of being able to undertake major projects absent huge government intervention. We all know the good news and the bad news associated with the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and so when you show up at the front desk of capital providers around the world, there is huge skepticism as to whether or not Canada can get its act together. So we need to move with a greater sense of urgency. I'm not necessarily an advocate of the kind of transactional process that we see taking place in Washington right now. But on the other hand, I'm an enemy of the process that we seem to be ensnarled by in past practices here in this country. And so urgency, urgency, urgency. We need to make stuff happen, and we need to make it happen now. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I'm Matt Harper, president with Invinity Energy Systems. Invinity manufactures a type of product called a vanadium flow battery, which is a durable, sustainable alternative to lithium-ion batteries currently being used to regulate power on electric grids around the world. We develop and manufacture that technology from our factory in Vancouver, where we've got a team of 85 people, scientists, engineers, assembly technicians who are not only conceiving those batteries, but manufacturing them so that they can be distributed all over the world. We see a tremendous role for our energy storage products in a future pan-Canadian electrification project, being able to take disparate forms of electricity generation, wind, solar, hydro, other forms, and being able to deliver them onto the grid when they're needed most is critical to the success of the clean energy future. But for us, it's not just about building projects here. We want to be able to manufacture those products for the Canadian grid and use the application of those products as an example of what our products can do all around the world. That'll help us, use that home base, that demonstration of what we can do for Canada to prove what we can do for grids around the world, allowing us to build our business and helping us build a strong, clean energy export economy based right here in Canada. In short, we're ready to partner with everyone across the Canadian industry to apply these batteries to get the clean grid up and running, and then turn around and export those products all over the world.
Mino Gajib, good morning. Tabatha Indigenous, Nipissing Dijnaba, Mijici Dodem. It's an honor to be here on the unceded territory of Anishinaabe Algonquin people. I'm the President and CEO of the Canadian Council for Indigenous Business, a national not-for-profit committed to strengthening the Indigenous economy in partnership with government, non-Indigenous businesses, and all Canadians. Indigenous business leaders are not just participating in Canada's clean energy future, they are an essential component. Across the country, Indigenous-owned enterprises and community-owned partnerships are advancing generation and transmission projects that will drive Canada's clean power economy. Projects that are built faster, better investments, and provide more benefit to all Canadians. We see that every day, from the Mi'kmaq Renewable Energy Strategy in Nova Scotia to the Waasigan Transmission Line in Northern Ontario to the Cowessess Renewable Energy Storage Facility in Saskatchewan, and many more across the country. To realize this opportunity, there is more to do. We need clear, long-term policy frameworks built with Indigenous leaders at the table. Early and meaningful inclusion of Indigenous communities and investments and equity partnerships, programs to support the growing Indigenous population to fill the need for skilled workers, evolution of procurement mechanisms, and early access to opportunities so Indigenous entrepreneurs can access the financing, mentorship, and networks required to compete from day one. Above all, we need to ensure that all and any streamlined permitting systems uphold Indigenous rights and communities are supported to participate. When Indigenous businesses are meaningfully included, Canada's clean energy transition is stronger, faster, more just, and prosperous for all. That's how we build clean power, community prosperity, and economic reconciliation. Miigwech.
Good morning. I'm Colleen Giroux-Schmidt, Senior Vice President of Development for Western Canada and Federal Government Affairs with Innergex Renewable Energy. Innergex is a 30-year Canadian-founded renewable energy company that's accelerating our investment in wind, solar, hydro, and battery storage across Canada today. Throughout our whole history, we've been proudly partnering with Indigenous communities and local communities to develop projects that deliver long-term benefits for Canadians, balancing people, planet, and prosperity. We welcome the commitments in Budget 2025, providing durable supports that will help enable the build-out of this critical infrastructure, reduce the risk, and harness a partnership between private capital and Indigenous business leadership. But we still need a streamlined regulatory framework, investments in interprovincial transmission corridors, stable funding commitments for Indigenous partners, and durable tax incentives that offer the long-term certainty investors need to know Canada is open for clean power business. The federal government has a key role to play as the North Star, providing that certainty and vision for the Canada we can have in 2050 if we build it today. At Innergex, we're ready to contribute and continue our leadership in building a better Canada with renewable energy by scaling our generation and storage capacity, supporting Canada's economy and society, and helping power a future where every region of this country has access to abundant renewable electricity.
So in closing, a national electrification effort that is clean power from coast to coast to coast will have enormous benefits in every province in the form of jobs, security, and affordability, and can be the backbone of a stronger, globally competitive Canadian economy. So the opportunity is here, but it won't wait. It's time to build the clean power system that will sustain Canadians for generations. Now's the moment to act with ambition and unity. And so thank you. We'll take any questions you have.
Yes, Darius Sneakus with Canada's National Observer. Thank you for this. I think this is obviously very much on point, not least the budget cleared last night. How do we disabuse this government of its notion that LNG is is what it sort of saves from ourselves in terms of energy supply and export, future export markets? We know the economics of a pan-Canadian clean electricity grid. If you look at David Suzuki Foundation's numbers or C.D. Howe's roadmap a few weeks ago, I've spoken to Hitachi on the subject. The economics are indisputable. The technology required is in operation around the world, HVDC, and so on. This would be not only an electricity backbone that obviously we're discussing, but indeed a grid which would connect renewables, microgrids, regional grids, which would create a jigsaw of Canadian electrification. And yet, again, we see the first two tranches of the first tranche of nation-building projects are heavily weighted toward old industry. As New Economy Canada, I mean, how do we pivot this ship? Because right now it looks like from all we can see, it's heading in decidedly the wrong direction. Thank you.
Yes, well, that's why we're here today, is to talk about the potential economic powerhouse that Canada can be, powered by clean electricity, and the jobs that can be created, the investment that can be attracted. So currently there's already 500,000 jobs in the electricity and energy efficiency sectors across the nation. They're in every province. So this is an industry that's going to benefit all Canadians. As you've said, launching this kind of initiative will attract investment. John here could speak a bit about the work he's doing around the Atlantic transmission line, trying to get that off the ground. But we're talking about a scale of investments that's many billions of dollars, more than what we're talking about in some of those LNG projects that you discussed. So this is good for the nation, and it is an investment, as Colleen said, that is one that is going to set a backbone of power for generations to come, that we will look back on and say, this is what transformed our economy and set us in the right direction. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak, but maybe you can speak about the numbers that you've been talking about.
Yeah, sure.
You need to come up here with the mic.
I'm not sure that I would use the word pivot, because pivot means we're moving in one direction and not going in another direction, and I think there is a role for LNG. As we look to build our, as in the Prime Minister's words, our Canadian energy powerhouse. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think it can be all. But I think that the license the government needs to continue to support the use and growth of fossil fuel industry comes from getting behind more green energy. And so I would encourage the government to pay as much attention to the building of transmission and green energy production facilities. And just to the point that was just made, our project writ large is a $16 billion transmission line designed to capture power generating primarily wind, but hopefully in one day some SMRs in New Brunswick, and deliver that to Quebec, where we take essentially non-stable power in the form of renewable energy, couple it with Hydro-Quebec's battery storage resident in their water reservoirs, and go to market with firm power, both in Quebec and beyond. And if you think about the scale of that, it's not just the $16 billion that it costs to build the transmission. It's if you look at sort of 10 gigawatts, which is our first phase, we need 10 gigawatts of production capacity. Well, 10 gigawatts of production capacity is roughly $60 billion, combination of offshore Nova Scotia and onshore Newfoundland. So now you're talking $75 billion. We don't have another major project in this country of that scale. And that will continue to go on and on and on. It doesn't stop at $75 billion because the market is insatiable. Nova Scotia has the potential to produce 50 to 55 gigawatts of offshore wind. Newfoundland has the capacity to produce 25 to 30 gigawatts of onshore wind. So these numbers are enormous and can be a huge driver to economic transformation, not just in Atlantic Canada, but across the whole eastern region.
By way of follow-on, I mean, I would sort of press you slightly. I think there is a pivot required, if I may say, because fundamentally we are, to any analyst I speak to, in any gas market analyst, what we're attempting here, not only in Asia, but indeed in Europe, if we actually propose building the Fairmuse LNG plant, is really a hiding to nothing. There is no market, will be no market for this, for our gas or for LNG by the time that we get the stuff there. The Asian market, as you'll know, LNG Canada has been shipping out cargoes at a much lower rate than it expected to. I mean, again, I think we should be calling a spade here, but there we go. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're focusing on, a couple of natural resources. One is the natural resource of clean power that this nation has an abundance of across the country. And secondly is around mining, those critical metals and minerals that are required to create these clean technologies, whether it's the batteries, they go into solar panels, they go into a variety of these new clean technologies, and Canada has an abundance of them as well. And so there's really some significant opportunities for job creation and to attract global investment to Canada.
Can I?
Yep. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I was just look, Darius. I was just going to add from my perspective. One of my favorite sayings in this area is that the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone, right? I mean, I think the same is going to be true of LNG as well. Our job, if we want to push the narrative and push towards the kind of technologies we're doing, is to prove that they are the better alternative for ourselves, for the nation, for the people in our country. I think it's unequivocal that there are better job opportunities. There are lower carbon emissions futures. There are lower costs for electricity ratepayers, and there are, to your point, John, better investment opportunities to be had in the clean energy economy than the conventional energy economy. And if we can continue to advance that narrative, showing not what's bad about the old thing, but what's great about the new thing, that's what's going to win the day.
Point. We're obviously flying a flag for LNG and copper mines, which are not critical minerals except on the 34, the broadest 30 interpretation of 34 critical minerals. We're promoting port expansion. These are not electrified. This is old industry that we're promoting, and we're not promoting the new industries that we have. We're not promoting the new natural resources that we have. Wind and solar deployments are falling. We're heading the wrong direction, quite simply.
Are they falling? They may not be accelerating at the same rate, but and we see. Okay, fair enough. Look, I think this is the job that we're here to do, right? Is to promote the benefits of.
Sure. Please don't take what I'm saying as negative, but I do see we were all expecting much better from the Carney government in its first stretch in terms of investment in things like a Trans-Canada grid, indeed in terms of clean electricity ITCs, which are now in place, but again have been in limbo for a period of time and so on. So.
Yeah. And that limbo, I think, to some of the comments that I know Colleen has made earlier, the stability of these policies is one of the things that's going to be absolutely critical to advancing that conversation.
If there's any other questions, and if not, we'll come back to you.
For the journalists who joined the conference on Zoom, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Pour les journalistes qui se sont joints à nous sur Zoom, si vous avez une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée. Did you want to add something to your statement?
Yeah, I would say, so one of the things this government hasn't done is they've announced major projects, but they haven't announced any nation-building projects. And what we're proposing is a nation-building project. And it's around not just these one-off projects, but stitching it together. I actually loved your language about a jigsaw, because you're right, it's not one transmission line across the country. It's a jigsaw connecting this piece and that piece and that piece. And so, what we feel is that those ITCs that were in the budget, that's a good step forward. What do we need? We need more details. There's a conversation about transmission lines and the interconnectivity between provinces and the need for more transmission lines in order to double the capacity. So who owns those, and what's the role of the federal government in funding those so that this build-out doesn't fall on ratepayers? Those are critical and important questions. And then lastly, creating that policy certainty and stability that is needed, like industrial carbon pricing and the other policies that they have in place to reduce carbon emissions, which basically send a signal to electrify. that's what our members are asking for, is to make sure that those things continue and put in place, and that we start to double down on the potential around a clean electricity and the mines to mobility. You know, modernizing our auto sector is going to use those critical metals and minerals here at home, and build out an auto sector that's set for, you know, the next few decades, where it's going to be a transition to electrified transportation. Might not work everywhere in the country, but for the majority of Canadians, it's going to be just a better form of transportation and more affordable. Anybody else want to add anything?
I'd love the developer's take on this. I know Mr. Letelier's view, but I'd be keen on yours, especially from the perspective of Pratt.
Yeah, and I think, again, to pick up on your word of a jigsaw puzzle or patchwork, this is where instead of one point source major investment in one place, this is an opportunity to bring meaningful economic development to all the different corners of our country. And along the way, build a more reliable and resilient energy system that will increase the quality of life for Canadians, whether they're in a major urban centre or a more rural part of the province. And so we're actively developing projects right now, not in urban centres, and the economic development from these is significant. Our 6 projects in Quebec and British Columbia that are actively being advanced right now represent $4.5 billion of investment between the 2 provinces. All of those projects are co-owned by the Indigenous nation in whose territory the project is. So it's a significant economic foundation for the nations as well. And we're just beginning to see what the positive impact that has for Canadians writ large. So doing this right and having the federal government provide that North Star so that we know we can continue to invest in building these great projects the way we've been doing in Canada for 30 years. We want to continue to do it for another 30 years and invest that capital in this nation and help build it here at home.
Question really on how you see pricing this, because but the back envelope calculations I've seen suggest the cross Canada grid would cost less than TMX, for instance, 35 billion. I know obviously the 10 billion that could be spent out east is part of it, but have you done your maths on this and what would be involved?
Yes, we have.
Across country.
Yeah, and the answer, well, not across the country, but look, this idea that the administration in the United States is advocating that renewables are a more expensive alternative is an absolute nonsense. What it's important for people to understand is that the business model is inherently different in that with renewables, all the capital gets invested up front, and then the costs going forward, the sun comes free, the wind comes free, essentially, right? And so you've got huge certainty around future pricing with renewables that you don't have with fossil alternatives, because of course who knows what the price of natural gas is going to be in 5 years, who knows what the price of oil is going to be in 5 years, and so on. It's just a different business model. So once again, we can essentially forecast once you get a project up and running what the price of electricity is going to be for a very, very long time, because all the costs are essentially incurred up front. But the point is that this produces very competitively priced electricity, especially when you consider where electricity prices are headed over the course of the next 5 years, which in the United States, where consumers in the New England sector in particular are paying, at the consumer level, are paying prices that are 3x what their Canadian counterparties are paying, right? So this can be a source of huge competitive advantage for the country if we get this right.
You don't want to touch a Canadian dollar figure to this project? It is a nation-building project, no?
We'll come back to you on that one.
I write headlines too.
It's a great question.
Okay, thank you, Merran.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Maybe not for now.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Merci.
Great.